The Temple of Karnak is not just one single temple, but a temple complex anchored by the legendary Amun Temple and several other cult temples dedicated to Mut and Khonsu. It was built by generations of pharaohs who contributed construction works in the form of temples, pylons, sanctuaries, and rooms to the temple complex over the course of thousands of years. The powerful pharaohs of the New Kingdom, whose names are well known today, like Hatshepsut, Thutmose III, Seti I, Ramses II, all made significant contributions to the temple complex. Although the peak of its significance as a religious center was during the New Kingdom, additions and changes to the temple complex continued into the rule of the Ptolemies, Romans, and early Christians. The temple complex spans over 200 acres and is larger than the main temple of Angkor Wat, where we have fond memories from our 3-week visit in 2020, just as COVID was emerging. But it is smaller than the entire Angkor temple complex, which is nearly double the size at 406 acres. The temple complex was significant because it was the site of the annual Opet festival that was held at Karnak. Ancient Egyptians believed that at the end of the agricultural cycle, the god's energy needed to be replenished. The Opet festival was held to rejuvenate the energy of the gods and also to celebrate the link between the pharaoh and the god Amun. The procession began at the Temple of Karnak, traveled down the Avenue of the Sphinxes, and ended at Luxor Temple. During our visit to the temple complex, our guide Omar pulled out a fantastic book called Alex's Journeys of Discovery. The books are known for the great historical accuracy of the text and illustrations that depict with amazing detail what the sites probably looked like during the height of their influence. As we walked through the Amun Temple, Omar referred to the book repeatedly, showing us the illustrations to give us an idea of the original appearance of the temples. The illustrations were detailed and stunning and helped us to see beyond just the ruins before us. The books opened a portal which we stepped through to experience the Karnak temple from thousands of years ago and imagine how awe-inspiring this temple would have been to anybody who set their eyes on it. There is simply so much to see at the temple complex of Karnak that it can feel overwhelming. While we were there, we didn't focus so much on remembering the history and significance of the various temples, pylons, and architectural elements. We allowed ourselves to be enveloped by the breathtaking grandness and stunning visual details of everything before us. For me, the most unforgettable part of the Amun Temple were the massive columns in the great hypostyle hall. There are 134 gigantic stone columns depicted as giant stalks of papyrus that would have been brightly painted and supported a heavy wooden roof. This hall was built by Seti I around 1290 BC and added to or altered by subsequent pharaohs. Ramses II was adept at adding depictions of himself throughout the hall and engraving his cartouche on top of existing cartouches, effectively claiming the great hypostyle hall as his domain. We walked through the temple complex and approached the sacred lake. Just in front of the sacred lake was the statue of a scarab beetle. The ancient Egyptians associated scarab beetles with the blessings of happiness and rebirth because they believed that scarab beetles, enrolling their dung and laying eggs that turned into larvae, mirrored the work of Amun-Ra in the celestial realm. It's believed to be good luck if a person walks around the statue 7 times. If the person has a specific request to Amun-Ra, they can walk around the statue up to 21 times. We didn't hesitate to make a wish and circle the statue 21 times. Very close to the scarab beetle and just in front of the sacred lake is a recent addition to the site. Queen Hatshepsut's pink granite obelisk was built in 1457 BC, but had fallen either due to natural causes or intentional destruction. For hundreds of years, the top 1/3 of the obelisk was laying by the wayside in disrepair and in danger of crumbling into oblivion. A completely restored obelisk was re-erected in 2022. For thousands of years, the temple complex of Karnak was an ever-changing, ever-evolving site where new pharaohs sought to make their mark and leave their legacy. We spent some time strolling through the Karnak Open Air Museum, located off to the side of the main tourist area and often overlooked by visitors who focus on the main temples. While the existing temples show the structures that have managed to survive the ages, the Karnak Open Air Museum is an effort to show the structures that didn't make it. When new pharaohs ascended the throne, they demolished old structures that they considered unimportant and used the materials to build new ones. The pieces that were not reused were found scattered inside or used as filler material for newer monuments. Like putting together the pieces of a massive 3D puzzle, made even harder by many missing pieces that are already part of another monument, archaeologists pieced together some of the structures that had not existed for thousands of years. Two of the most impressive and significant were the Red Chapel of Hatshepsut and Thutmose III, and the White Chapel of Senusret I. Scattered throughout the open-air museum still were rows and rows of crumbling pieces that had not yet found their way back to the monument that they were once a part of. The Temple of Karnak and Luxor Temple are only a short distance from each other. In ancient times, they were connected by the Avenue of Sphinxes, comprised of about 1,350 sphinxes along a 3-kilometer stone road. At the entrance of the temple stands a massive 25-meter-tall obelisk built by Ramses II. It is obvious, due to the lack of symmetry, that there was originally another obelisk that stood beside it. The missing obelisk is in Paris at the Place de la Concorde. Thousands of Egyptian antiquities that are held by museums and private collectors overseas. This is a point of protest, frustration, anger, and sadness for anybody involved in Egyptology and for Egyptians in general. The first pylon of Luxor Temple has 6 huge statues, or colossi, of Ramses II. The center 2 are seated, and the 2 statues on either side are standing. The first pylon gave us a sense of just how large the structures are. Again, Omar took out his Alex's Journey of Discovery book and showed us what the temple would have looked like during the height of its influence. Each of the statues of Ramses II are wearing the double crown of Egypt, showing that Ramses was the ruler of both Upper and Lower Egypt. After passing through the first pylon, we entered the great court of Ramses II. The most impressive figures here are the standing colossi of Ramses II and the papyrus columns. Back to the Egyptian artifacts located abroad. Why can't Egypt get them back? There have been demands for some of the most high-profile artifacts to be repatriated back to Egypt. At the top of the list is the Rosetta Stone, currently at the British Museum, the bust of Nefertiti, currently at the News Museum in Berlin, and the Dendera Zodiac, currently in the Louvre. It seems the chance of repatriation is low, as the museums where the objects are housed argue that they were acquired legally in accordance with the laws of the era. We explored the Amenhotep III colonnade and the great court of Amenhotep III. Everything we saw was spectacular, and we could only wonder about how all of this was built. Our guide, Omar, told us about a clever method ancient Egyptians used to build the hypostyle halls with tens or hundreds of columns. They didn't build one column at a time. No, they built it in levels. They would place the base layer of all the columns in the hall at once. Then they would fill the area up with sand to create an embankment, effectively raising the working level. They would continue increasing the height of the embankment with sand until all of the columns reached the designated height. Similar to the temple complex of Karnak, Luxor Temple, as it stands today, is the cumulative effort of generations of rulers that added to it and changed it to suit their needs. Construction of the temple began with Amenhotep III in around 1390 BC and was completed by Tutankhamun and Horemheb and then added to by Ramses II. Even after the Pharaonic age, the temple was used as a place of worship for Christians and Muslims. Inside the temple walls, there's a Coptic church and a mosque, and you can see where the original artwork was changed to reflect Christian iconography. I most enjoy seeing how new rulers with different religions adapted the temple to suit their plan and purpose. Inside the temple, there are at least 2 Coptic Christian churches that were built during the Byzantine period. There were engravings throughout the temple that were altered to reflect Christian iconography, like the Coptic cross. The Mosque of Abu al-Haggag was built on top of the site of a demolished church during the Islamic period. It contains the tomb of the Sufi mystic Yusuf Abu al-Hajjaj. It's hard to wrap my mind around the enduring presence of Luxor Temple in the lives of the ancient Egyptians. It has been a site of worship for over 3,500 years. The Christian religion is only 2,000 years old, and the Muslim religion is even younger than that. It's simply fascinating that this structure has managed to remain an important part of people's lives by staying relevant and influential through adaptations to suit the religion of the time.